Hi, this is Kurt Barone, and welcome to another edition of Fire Law Roundup.
The last case is an interesting one we've been following for a while out of Nashville. And I blogged about it a couple of times, but it's a African-American firefighter, Josh Liscombe, who's also a comedian and has a stage name of Josh Black. He had posted some social media comments about something that the city council had opted to do, which was adopt license plate readers, apparently for the police, so that they could identify stolen vehicles or vehicles that they were pursuing for whatever it may be. And his comment got him in hot water with the department. He was suspended. He apparently didn't like that and felt like he had a First Amendment right, filed suit. And in October, we talked about this case in that the judge had issued a preliminary injunction barring enforcement of two of the policies that he was cited for violating. And again, if you want to, well, I'll leave a link to that, or you'll be able to kind of get back to that that
but
case.
Note, he calls them a white supremacist, right? He calls the board a group of white supremacists. And I want people should understand, as offensive as that is, right? I'd almost be shocked if they didn't sue, saying, well, I guess we are, right? White supremacists. But, as offensive as that is, nobody's actually, the law would say, right? Nobody's actually going to believe just because someone said it that you are actually white supremacists. And people have the right to that opinion type of I would call it defamation. It's not defamation, otherwise it wouldn't be protected, but it's still protected speech. And people have no idea how unfortunate it is, but we have to take citizens, the United States, have to take a lot of insults, and they can't necessarily sue or discipline you just because you insult them. The law protects the speaker more than it does the target of the speach, I think.
Well, I think the importance of that, our forefathers recognized that when they adopted our Constitution. And just take a look at Russia. And the silencing of dissidents. And I think any sort of totalitarian government, one of the hallmarks of a totalitarian government is they silence people who say things that they don't like. And we've got a little bit of that going on in the United States these days with trying to make certain topics off you can't talk about and take it off the agenda. But at any rate, the court struck down these two parts of the policy, and the city I'm sure made a calculated decision here to settle. And when the case was first announced, so the settlement was first announced, he's going to get $450,000. One of the questions was, is he going to continue as a firefighter? Is this, what exactly is the $450,000 in exchange for? And the latest information that we've got now is that as a condition of the settlement, he is going to resign. So again, whether or not he had First Amendment protected speech, whether or not he didn't, whether or not it was so offensive that it lost its First Amendment protection, whether or not it was First Amendment protected, guess we'll never know. We won't have a clear explanation of that. But what we do know is that as part of the $450,000 settlement, from what I read in the follow-up article about this, he had $300,000 in legal fees. So he's only going to get $150,000. His attorneys are going to take $300,000. But he has, opted not to return as a Nashville firefighter.
Yeah. So it goes back to how do you advise people who are, especially municipalities, et cetera, leaders who are targets of insults and comments, and unless they're accusing you of a crime, unless it's they're accusing you of something that's stated as a fact and not as opinion, which by the way is a very hard concept. But unless they're accusing you of something that they state as a fact, not their opinion, it's very hard to win a lawsuit or to defend a lawsuit if you discipline somebody for that. People have the right, fortunately and unfortunately, I'm going to quote Alan Dershowitz in a minute, but fortunately or unfortunately, people have the right to say whatever, not almost, not whatever, but almost
not whatever though, not whatever,
not whatever, but almost
okay?
whatever.
Well, you can't cause actual harm or disruption to the mission and function of the organization. All right. So there's the parroted line right from Pickering. All right. Yeah. But again, we do the Pickering balancing test. You know, is it a matter of public concern? Well, race relations is a matter of public concern. Agree or disagree, and I disagree with what he said, but agree or disagree, I would agree with you. That's a matter of public concern. It is First Amendment, potentially First Amendment protected speech. Secondly, did you do it as a private citizen?
He's a comedian.
He did it as a comedian. He did it in his stage name. And so, okay, so now you got the two. The last analysis now is, could speech like this cause actual harm or disruption to the mission and function of the fire department? And we've seen white firefighters be terminated for saying that they're going to run people over who are protesting and shutting down the interstate highways in support of Black Lives Matter. We've seen, so there is, you know, you're entitled to an opinion, you disagree with Black Lives Matter, but when you turn the corner and threaten to hurt people or harm people, that's where you can cause actual harm or disruption. Okay, so with that sort of as a backdrop now, is this of that sort of nature or character that could cause actual harm or disruption? Okay, and you know, at the end of the day, we can all have our opinions, but at the end of the day, it's going to come down to a court and whether or not a court, and sometimes even you get a district court judge, federal district court judge says, you're out, you know, it does. The Court of Appeals says it doesn't. You go up to the Supreme Court, they say, oh, no, it does, you know, and so even the judges can't agree. So, and my point is, how is some kid sitting in front of a computer supposed to predict whether or not his comments are going to be over the line when you've got federal court judges that can't get it together?
And you know, the forum, it's not often talked about in courts, but I've seen it. The forum in which a comment is made matters a lot.
Oh yeah.
And when you're at a comedy show versus standing at a public meeting, right? If somebody's standing out in public and says, our board is a bunch of white supremacists, that's one thing. When he's doing it at a comedy show or in a comedic, you know, venue, whether it's online or whatever, I think you have to evaluate the comment in light of the forum in which it's given.
Interesting,
right?
Yeah.
And so, and I'm not making that up. I wish I was. But you know, it does matter. And here, come on, just, you know, my phrase, suck it up, buttercup. I'm sorry. You know, when you rise to a top position, you know, it's what you expect to have happen, right? I mean, Trump, Biden, Clinton, pick one. It doesn't matter. You rise to a top position, you're going to be the subject of harassment.
I have a lot of sympathy for the chiefs out there that have got to try to strike a balance. Okay. And because if you say that this is okay, and I agree with you to a great extent, I agree with you, this should be First Amendment protected. Okay. But if you're sitting there as the chief and you say, okay, if I let this go, what happens when a white firefighter says something, you know, because and that is a difficult, I think a difficult analysis. And, you know, maybe the city maybe, or, you know, went a little hard. They suspended him for 14 days. So it wasn't like they terminated him. You know, it's a lot easier. You know, you look at one case, you say, oh yeah, this is clearly, and then you start looking, well, what about this one? And then what about this one? And how do we arrive at a consistency for our organization, especially over the course? It's hard. It's hard.
Yeah, very tough. Very tough. You know, I think show respect for everybody, and you hope they do. But going back to Alan Dershowitz, you know, Alan Dershowitz, a lawyer from Harvard, for those who know him, he's gotten a bad light because he's been defensive of Trump and then not. But he says something which is very important. He said, you either believe 100% in the Constitution, this is not the exact quote, or you don't. And if you do, you defend everything, including the Nazi, right, at, Nazi at Nuremberg, but you defend everything, not just those that don't make your stomach sick. So he has a great quote, something that if you truly believe and support the Constitution, he said, you support the things that make your stomach turn over. And it's a great quote he has from years ago.
I have always idolized Alan, and he was sort of a figurehead for liberalism back when I was a young attorney.
Yeah.
And go figure, now he somehow is sort of a figurehead for conservatism. I don't know how did that happen? Like somebody changed the rules and they didn't tell us all about it. I mean,
supporting the Constitution used to be a big deal. But anyway, I'm gonna bite my tongue on the rest of my comments before.
I understand. I feel bad for the Chiefs out there, because I've seen a number of them. We got Detroit is another one that has gone back and forth, and they try to strike a balance, and it's a lot easier said than done. It's something that federal courts don't have to worry about, because they can say, nope, that's over the line in one case, and then 6 months later say, oh no, that's not over the line in another one. They don't have to live with any need to be consistent. But certainly from a fire chief's perspective, we got to try to walk that line, and not everybody's going to agree with the decisions that that get made. So
I think if you have a thick skin, it will best serve you than
any
other approach.
I agree. I agree. So, well, that's going to wrap it up for another year. 2022 is in the books. And let's hope that 2023 is a much better year for all of us. Hopefully we get some peace in the world, and things sort of get back to normal with COVID, and
lawsuits. I mean, hey, don't stop the lawsuits. We need those.
Yeah, no, I don't see that. I don't see the lawsuit stopping, but I think our ability to at least travel and get back to our pre-2020 lives would be long overdue. But next week, go ahead.
I just want to shout out, and I guarantee they're not watching, but I've been talking to my clients in Buffalo all day about issues. I mean, I have departments, they just activated the state mutual aid plan, which can lead to a bunch of other interesting
because
topics.
Of the cold?
Oh, the snow. I mean, they have feet of snow. There was a structure fire in Buffalo yesterday, and the vehicles couldn't arrive. They couldn't get water on the fire.
Yeah, we found that.
But I have clients, our departments out in Buffalo are running 150 calls a day. And they've just brought in departments from Rochester, and I think Syracuse is mobilizing soon. And it's nationwide. If you have not listened or looked at what's happening in Buffalo, which is mostly a volunteer system, not the city, but around is mostly a volunteer system. It's incredible. So a shout out to them for the weather. They'll get a little bit of reprieve now, but they are working their proverbial butts off, and in some very, very tough conditions. So shout out to everybody who's going through that.
All right. Next week, which will be January 2nd, when we do the show, we're going to do a year in review. So we won't be doing our normal weekly review, but we'll be doing a year in review, and we'll be looking at a couple of different top cases, and we'll give you our perspective, our opinions on some of the most important and most significant cases from 2022.
And hopefully 22 or 23, the beginning, gets us up to 1,000 viewers. We'd love to be up there. So if you guys aren't telling your friends to watch, hope you watch. Yeah,
if you really could help us, we really want to get up to 1,000. I think we're up to around 730. So we're really, 270 or so more subscribers. It'd mean a lot to us if we can get up to 1,000. It'll help us with the YouTube algorithms, get the word out there. And Brad and I, we don't make a penny from this. We're doing this strictly, and all the work I do blogging about the cases, and with File Law Blog, and my database. I mean, that's we're doing that for the good of the fire service. So certainly if you can help us by subscribing, we'd really appreciate it. It'd be a big help to us. I those of you know, I got a little apple orchard here in Exeter, and I got 30 acres, and I do watch a lot of tractor videos, and I'm looking at some guy who's talking about how to change a valve on a hydraulic system, and he's got like 8,000 subscribers, and I'm like, what am I doing wrong?
Well, I think if people start watching, they'll realize this is a great, I mean, truthfully, we offer a great legal education where people can really understand how to do their job as chiefs, administrators, firefighters, etc. There's nothing like it out there, obviously. I mean, we have, some other things we do a little bit on, but a weekly commentary going through, the shoulds and shouldn'ts and coulds and couldn'ts of the law. I really think this is a big education for everybody. So I hope we can keep bringing it to you. It's just, we just need good response. We've had great response, but we need a little bit more.
A little bit more, 270 more. And I think what's going to happen then is the YouTube algorithm changes, and we'll be in a much better position to recruit more subscribers. Okay. But if in the meantime, if you could help us out by subscribing, certainly click like if you like, and help us out there. So Brad, thanks for a great year. I really appreciate your friendship and your input. And, that's going to wrap it up for another edition.